such an honor and privilege to be speaking at the Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival. So, as the topic states, it's all about the fifth industrial revolution, but I would love to take you guys through my journey on how I started talking about or, leading the fifth industrial revolution. So it all goes back to my young days when I was growing up as a teenager, and I saw a lot of poverty around me, and I always felt that I came from a background of privilege where I was getting educated at good schools, but a lot of people around me weren't, like a lot of kids weren't. And that time I thought, you know, like, is there a way where you cannot be a Bill Gates or you cannot be a multi-billionaire, but you can still solve social problems? Is there a way around that? And that is where I thought, if there can be a model where you can actually solve social problems like hunger or poverty or education or gender inequality, or clean water and sanitation, and also create sustainable business models which sustain, so not relying just on donor funding or just philanthropy, then I think that would be pretty cool. And that's why I started my first company when I was at the age of 16, which was in the space of education. And yeah, it really kicked off, and we were basically helping a lot of underprivileged kids get educated. That went well, and since then I've founded seven more companies in the last decade, and most of the companies actually have been trying to promote the idea where if you have a purpose and if you are working on a purposeful idea, then you can end up creating more revenues and more profits. So it's like working at the intersection of purpose and profits. So that's the idea behind fifth industrial revolution. And I think if you see all the industrial revolution that have existed in the past, as soon as a new form of energy is created, we need to transcend from one industrial revolution to the next. So when you see about the current revolution that we are in, which is the fourth industrial revolution, we have had amazing technological advancements like 3D printing, Internet of Things, blockchain, and so on and so forth. But if you see that there are a lot of social problems around us, which everybody knows. Like, we don't have, there are just 919 girls to 1,000 boys here in India, which is just extreme gender inequality. When you talk about water, 1/3 of people still don't have access to clean drinking water and sanitation, which is again appalling. And if you talk about health, people still don't have access to adequate health infrastructure. And when you talk about education, not all people, not all kids even end up completing their high school, leave alone the post-graduation piece. So, so that's, and despite all the technological advancement, there are social problems that still exist in the world. And I think if we can solve these social problems using the technology that we have, that is what I call the fifth industrial revolution. And I think that is why we need a fifth industrial revolution to flourish, so that we can actually work at the intersection of purpose and profits and have a beautiful, better world where we can, like, everybody can live more abundant lives, but the world is more sustainable. And I think during these last 10 months, which the world has seen, which has been the COVID crisis, I think this is all going to expedite our progress from the fourth industrial revolution to the next industrial revolution, which is the fifth one. Because everybody now has started to realize more than ever, and I'm talking about even capitalist people, even they start to realize that if you focus on purpose, if you focus on building a better world, then you can end up making more profit. So it's so interlinked. And the way we're going to transcend, I generally say that there are about 3 to 4 tenets to leading the fifth industrial revolution. The first one is using business as a force for good. That's the first tenet. And using so if you see about even the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we are still short of lots of billions of dollars. And to bridge that deficit, we need businesses to come forward. We helped take a Harpic Mission Pani to World Economic Forum in Davos earlier in 2020, and where we showed that if you have a purpose, if you are a brand who is actually advancing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, you can end up creating more brand warmth, which basically gives you more consumers and gives you more revenue. So it's like, how can you mobilize marketing dollars towards impact? We helped build a widely watched show called Some Good News by John Krasinski. Again, the idea was, how can we mobilize millions of dollars from companies like Pepsi and Starbucks towards social enterprises working on United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and which also gives brand warmth back to the brand. So that's the first tenet, and to sum it up in one line, if Fortune 500 companies can go from for-profit model to a for-benefit model, then that is going to be the linchpin to create the fifth industrial revolution. That's the first tenet. The second tenet is increased focus on United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So I basically think that UN has basically given us a beautiful framework, which if businesses start to use, it would be super cool. And I think this decade, if we can end up, using the language, the shared language of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, then we know where we are headed. And if we can achieve that by 2030, then we are definitely moving towards a better sustainable world, and will help achieve or transcend us into a fifth industrial revolution. The third tenet is increased focus on bringing women into the labor workforce. So if you, like I was just telling you, there are just 919 boys to 1,000 girls here in India, and even when you talk about the whole globe, there isn't a 50-50 ratio. But if you talk about the population in general, we have 50% women. So until we bring women into the workforce, we can't as a planet flourish. We can't as an economy grow. So, to cause fifth industrial revolution, we definitely need more women entering the workforce, and we definitely need to achieve SDG 5, which is gender equality. And I also feel that if we basically focus on Sustainable Development Goal 5, it actually helps us achieve other sustainable development goals of the United Nations as well, because it's pretty linked. If you achieve one SDG, it actually spirals into other SDGs. So that's the third tenet of achieving the fifth industrial revolution. I also feel, apart from using a lot of capital for good, if we can create omni-win solutions, that's the fourth tenet. So creation of omni-wins. And what I saw growing up, so I had the privilege of working with the Tata Group, which is one of the biggest groups here in India. And I saw that there are millions and billions of dollars being spent on marketing, but they aren't going towards a social cause. On the other side, I also had the privilege of working or just founding a big not-for-profit leadership movement called India Needs You in India, and where I realized that not-for-profits, the entire sector is so reliant or so relying on grants and donors that they don't have sustainable business models, and it's hard for them to actually execute stuff without funding. They have brilliant ideas, they have a good execution workforce on the ground, but if we can connect those dots, then it becomes easier to execute. The third sector that I had, I'm friends with are mostly, people who are ultra high net worth, billionaires, celebrities, and so on and so forth. So these people, they belong to the third silo, as I like to call it. And, they want to contribute to a social causes, but they don't know how to do it. In terms of, if they can also become a part of the solution, then it becomes easier because we also get more capital. And so these three different silos, I think to create fifth industrial revolution, we need to bring all of these three together and create an omni-win solution. So omni-win, as the word says, it's a win-win-win. So if these three silos come together, then basically the people of the world also win. And ultimately the entire three silos are also winning, and it's a win-win-win for everybody. And then you end up creating beautiful solutions. I would love to give you a small example of one of the solutions that we created. We created last year. So to achieve SDG 5, gender equality, we created a SDG 5 coin, which is a pure silver coin, with Rani of Jhansi being one of the iconic women figures in India on the top, and it was backed by blockchain. So it was basically a coin to encourage financial literacy amongst women worldwide. What we did, we were trying to basically solve the problem of gender inequality through education, through blockchain. What we did was we basically helped. We wanted to sell these coins to ultra high net worth people across the world, and to the government, and then all the proceeds that we got were going towards towards SDG 5 or not-for-profits or social enterprises working on gender inequality. So you can see how we can create these omnivorous solutions and help solve different SDGs or help solve different problems of the world and so on and so forth. Another example, which comes to mind, which we've been working with, and I think I shared about some good news. So we basically helped mobilize millions of dollars from Starbucks and PepsiCo towards a show which was created by John Krasinski called the Some Good News. Now, if you basically mobilize dollars from, say, a Fortune 500 like a Starbucks into social enterprises, and also bring the government into play so that you get scale. So you see the omnivorous solution that is being created, which actually helped solve different problems. So in COVID, there were a lot of restaurant workers which didn't have jobs or which lost jobs because of the entire hospitality sector taking a big hit. So we wanted to help that one. So that's why we took most of the proceeds went towards restaurants across the United States. So the proceeds went there. So you can see that, how a Fortune 500 company, how a social enterprise, and how an ultra high net worth or a celebrity can come together to create these omnivorous solutions. And that's going to be a part of the fifth industrial revolution. The other example is that I just launched a fund, a venture capital fund in India. It's a United States-based fund run by one of my very close friends. It's called the Walkstar Fund. It's the Women of Color Star Fund. So it's focused. It's a venture capital fund which basically invests in women of color and running technology solutions. So if a venture is being run by a women founder and is working, is using technology to solve social problems, which basically are, using the language of UN SDGs, then we will fund that. And we've been already funding those solutions. So, and if you see in the venture capital world, most of the capital ends up going towards men, which is just not right? Like we can't just flourish as an economy and grow. So we've launched this fund. So you can see these kind of solutions that I'm a part of currently that we are running at scale is actually helping the world move towards a better future, helping the world move towards a fifth industrial revolution. And then the another solution that comes to mind, I think I mentioned earlier, was Harpic Mission Pani, which is being stewarded by Amitabh Bachchan, which is an icon in the Indian Bollywood space. Now, what we did here also is we brought a Fortune 500 RB together on the table. Then we brought a not-for-profit called Water for People on the table, and then we also brought brought the government. So basically, these three pieces or these three silos coming together to create a water conservation fund to help solve the problem of SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, being implemented at scale across India, and we are a part of that. We're running that. And we helped take them to World Economic Forum in Davos earlier in January 2020. And basically, it was an idea to show that if a brand spends marketing dollars on impact, then it can end up creating more brand warmth. So these solutions can give you an idea. If we can work on those 4 tenets that I just spoke about and use technology to solve problems of humanity and bring these 3 silos together, Fortune 500, social entrepreneurs, and the government, and the ultra high net worth people. If we can bring all of these together, then I think we can really help transcend into the fifth industrial revolution, which will help the world flower like a Renaissance age. And we all need to be a part of it. And that will really, that's really what I'm trying to do. So yeah, thank you.